Greetings, viewers. What you're looking at is the first of now several Intel-based Macintoshes that I own. Yes, that's right. Before this Mac Mini, I did not own an Intel-based Macintosh. Not that you'll actually be able to read anything that's on this with this camera. It's a model number A1176, 1.83 gigahertz, 2x512 for 1 gig of RAM, 80 gig hard drive, combo drive, AP for airport, and BT for Bluetooth. This is actually an eBay find. It's a very early Mac Mini, built at a time when the Mac Mini was designed to compete with the commodity PC. The original Mac Mini was introduced in 2005. The Intel models, which replaced the original PowerPC, were introduced in 2006, and in this case design, ran to 2009. The Intel models went through a couple revisions. First they were Core Solos, then they were Core Duos, then they came out with this one, which uses a Core 2 Duo. The difference between the Core and the Core 2, of course, is that the Core 2s were 64-bit compatible, where the original Cores were not. However, it is worth noting that the original Core machines, although they were Core machines, they used the same socket as the later ones, and you could upgrade the CPU to a 64-bit compatible CPU. These days, when people think of Mac Minis, they probably think of one of these on the bottom here. And even this is a fairly dated design because they don't have optical drives anymore either. Here's a little size comparison with the unibody. Quick look at the back. Pretty similar port arrangement. The newer one's got some different display output options, but overall pretty similar. Oh, and the newer one actually has the power supply built in. These old ones did not. The Mac Mini, which again, 2005, was introduced as a major competitor to the PC of the time, which is something that Apple previously didn't really do. Apple was on the higher end of the market, above $1,000. The original Mac Mini was introduced at $499 US. This particular model, this is actually one of the Core 2 Duo models, was introduced at $599, so about the same price point, which is extremely cheap for a Macintosh. The other idea behind this was that it could be used as a direct replacement for an older PC. In fact, that's actually what my mother did. So we have a newer than this. It's not one of these, it's one of the unibody ones, but replacement for the PC. And the idea was that you use your own keyboard, mouse, and monitor. It did not come with any of those peripherals, which again probably helped to drive the cost down even further. Now, it would make sense to use the Apple peripherals just because it's a Macintosh, but you could use the PC peripherals, and it was the first time, really, that Apple basically said, go for it, even though it was always something that you could do. If we look on the back, there's the DC input for the power supply. Ethernet. Wow, that's out of focus. I'm pretty sure that was in focus a second ago, but anyway. Firewire, DVI, that is adaptable to VGA. 4 USB ports, which is a difference from the original PowerPC Mac Mini, which only had 2 ports. Kensington lock. There is a line in and a headphone out. And then, of course, on the front, you have the optical drive, which in this case is a combo drive, which basically means that it can read DVDs and burn CDs, but it will not burn DVDs. You had to get a super drive for that. You know, I find it kind of unfortunate that Apple really kind of got away from the whole idea of this being the inexpensive option for the Apple user because I think some of the later Mac Minis, particularly the ones that actually have a configuration worth having, are closer to the $1,000 mark, which, you know, still for a Macintosh is fairly cheap, but for a PC, $1,000 would get you quite a fair bit more than what the Mac Mini can offer. And you get a system that's not the most easily expandable. I mean, you can take these apart. I'm going to disappoint everybody by saying I'm not going to take this one apart in this video, because it works just fine. I don't want to wreck it. Although I might have to. There's something rattling around in this one. But they really kind of got away from that idea. I think they've started to come back towards it with their newer Apple Silicon machines. The PowerPC Mac Mini was introduced with ATI Video. I believe it was a Radeon 9200M chip. These early Intel ones used Intel GMA integrated video, which was widely criticized as being underpowered, even though it did support hardware acceleration for some things. And the later machines from 2009, not this one, fixed that by using NVIDIA GeForce graphics instead. You know, I put batteries back in that clock so it's running again, because I kind of missed the bird chirping, but now it's just kind of getting in the way of my video. Anyway, one thing that the later models added over this one is support for dual displays. This one only has the single DVI output. Now, my honest opinion is that given this thing is marketed towards maybe not low-end, but certainly not high-end PC users, multiple displays are not really something that the PC user shopping in this range is really thinking about. And if you're a Macintosh user that wants multiple displays, you're probably shopping a little bit higher in the marketplace than one of these as well. Still, for the price point that it was at, 2 displays would have been a very nice feature. It just, I guess, didn't really fit the bill of materials. Here's the power supply that it would have come with. 110 watt power adapter. This one actually didn't come with this computer. I think I got a power supply with this one, but it's sitting in my bin of power supplies, and this one was sitting out. So I bought this one. This particular Mac Mini was an eBay find. Then I think shortly after, I was given 2 of them by a viewer, one of which was torn apart in pieces that I think does not work. The other one is fully functional. And I don't know if this one or the other one will end up being used as a Linux experimentation box. Probably be the other one, because we'll take a look at that in another video, but this one is mine. I think I reinstalled the operating system on this too. The newest, to my understanding, operating system that this particular unit will run is 10.7 Lion, and only then if you upgrade it to 2 gigabytes of memory. I'm running 10.6 on this one because 10.6 quite honestly represented basically the end of the really good Mac OS X operating system lineage. Now, I've also gone on the record as saying I'm not a big fan of the whole 3D graphics thing. It just seems too glitzy, glamoury, and just kind of pretentious, in my honest opinion. But at the same time, I always thought that the Mac OS looked wrong without it, because they had it for so many years. Just the same thing as when Windows 8 came out, I thought that it was weird that it didn't have it. I've kind of gotten used to it, but it still seems very weird to me, and there's a lot of things about the modern Mac OS that I don't like. Speaking of time marching on, I think it's probably high time I actually power this thing on. So that's what we're about to do. I followed the whole bring your own monitor, keyboard, and mouse thing. I'm just using a random flat panel. This is the display that's been sitting on this desk for the longest time. This is not the keyboard that you would have bought if you did buy an Apple keyboard, but it happens to be handy. I think that the aluminum chiclet style keyboard would have been out by the time this model was released, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I mean, if it was not, you would have bought... It would have been a similar keyboard to this, but it would have had white keys, as opposed to this one. And of course, this mouse. This is actually an iMac mouse, or a replacement iMac mouse, back when they were using the hockey puck style mice that nobody really liked. I don't know if this will power on immediately as soon as I plug it in, which is why I haven't plugged it in yet. So, it is plugged in. It is not automatically powering up. There is a power button on the back, which again is a little bit of a departure for a Macintosh. Usually they had the power button on the keyboard, but this was designed to be used with a PC keyboard, which usually didn't have a power button. Like I said, I believe I reinstalled the operating system on this. Might not have even come with an operating system. Thinking about it. I don't know if this monitor... Yeah, it does have a tilt adjustment. Could have plugged it into my network. Spec-wise, the two working units are exactly the same. Well, that looks a little strange. I don't have to plug it into my network, actually. It's got Wi-Fi on it, and I almost forgot about that. Yeah, something about that looks a little odd. It's like the resolution's not quite set right. This mouse, I should have used an optically tracked mouse. It's not tracking very well on this table. Of course, I do have a mouse pad that I could go and get. Yeah, there's a mouse pad. That's actually a vintage mouse pad. Came from a local computer store that closed well over 20 years ago. I like the design of this, though. Really like the design of that. Up until at least relatively recently, that website was actually still online. But it was significantly busticated. And of course, considering it was a local store, I knew that it was long gone. But yeah, that works a lot better. This is a low DPI mouse, but that's fine. You don't really need high DPI for this anyway. What resolution is this running at? 1280 by... yeah, it's not 720. Unless it is. I think this is actually a 1440 by 900 monitor. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Lose the auto adjust. Yeah, that's more like what it should be. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that I reloaded the OS on this. Running 10.6.8. Still only got 1 gig of DDR2 memory. Look at the system profiler here. Mac Mini 2, 1. You're not going to be able to read any of that. Again, my apologies for this camera. I don't know why. It does have a focusing mechanism, but it doesn't seem to actually work properly. Interestingly enough, the optical drive, and that shows up as a CDRW, which is odd because it's supposed to be a combo drive. It's also IDE. I would have thought it'd be a SATA drive in something like this. But, 2007, IDE certainly was still well used at that point. Uses the Intel HD audio. Does have Bluetooth. And yeah, I reloaded the operating system on this. There's no card reader. No, it does read DVDs. Even though it calls itself out as a CDRW, it will read DVDs. But it won't do DVD burning. Ethernet, that's the airport, which for whatever reason shows up under Ethernet. That's kind of funny. And it's got a Marvell Yukon gigabit Ethernet adapter. No fiber channel. It does have a FireWire 400 port on the back, which you probably saw. GMA 950 video. No hardware RAID. 2 RAM slots. From the factory, both of them would have been populated with the 512 megs. That's probably the factory memory. No PCI, no parallel SCSI. Of course, the usual, there's no printers. I haven't added any printers to this. There's no SAS. Serial ATA. The hard drive is 80 gigabytes in size, so it's probably the original drive. No Thunderbolts, of course. And USB. I find it funny that this mouse actually identifies itself as a Macally USB one-button mouse. It's not identifying itself as like a generic USB human interface device. Of course, Airport. Let's see, what does this support? 802.11a, B, and G, so there's no 802.11n on this. Kind of interesting. I would have thought that it would have had that by that point. But this is on my network, so I suppose I could probably open up a web browser. Well, the only problem is I don't have one installed. I really haven't done anything with this since reloading the operating system. So a web browser may or may not actually really work. Well, the Apple website doesn't look too artistic. Doesn't really look correct, but... yeah, it's not really supposed to look like that, but... it's usable. Let me torture this thing a little bit. Let's see if YouTube will load. Yeah, predictably there's no YouTube on this. This is basically as far as you get. You just get a blank screen. The YouTube homepage at least gave me a message about upgrading my browser, but then from there it was just a bunch of boxes because Google is using so much Java sludge on this website that it just doesn't really work anymore. You can certainly go to other websites, though. This mouse is really flaking out on me. Go to my own. You can see it works just fine. Everything loads, everything looks okay. Of course, it certainly should. What version of Safari is this, anyway? Oh, you won't be able to read that. 5.1.10, copyright 2013. Man, what a simpler time it was. But I think that's pretty much really it for this. There's not a whole lot else that I can demonstrate. There's some dashboard widgets. Basically the defaults. Most of them don't work anymore because they rely on APIs that have been shut down. You can see it used to be all kinds of things. I remember my PowerBook G4. For no good reason other than I could, I had basically almost one of every single one of those on my dashboard. And they all worked, and it was really cool to me at the time. But times definitely change. It's not 2006 anymore. And with that somber note, I will go ahead and conclude this video. So, thank you for watching. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. I think the focus definitely got worse throughout this video. Well, a little bit of a postscript here. Went ahead and I got the other two. This is the one that I was talking about that's in pieces. So, here you can get an idea for what they look like. Here's a CPU cooling fan. Inside. Yeah, that's kind of messed up. I believe that's where the hard drive would go. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. That's where the optical drive would go. That would plug in right there. So, no, actually that would be where the optical and the hard drive. Because I thought that that was where the hard drive would go. I don't think it is. I think that's actually space for where the airport card would go. Right there. It's still got a memory module in it. Kind of surprised that it still has a memory module in it. This, I believe... No, that's a wireless antenna. Not sure where the LED actually would be on this. It's supposed to sit like that. But yeah. So that's what the inside of it looks like. If you wanted to know. I'll hook this one up and I'll power it up. I don't think I've done anything with that one either. In fact, I think it's still running. It did have, to my understanding anyway, it had the Mac OS reinstalled on it. Again, 10.6. Yeah, that one turned on immediately as soon as I plugged it in. Anyway, I was going to say that if you do the whole bring your own monitor, keyboard, and mouse thing, most PC keyboards don't have a USB hub on it. So you'd end up using up 2 of your 4 USB ports just with a keyboard and a mouse. Well, that's interesting. I wasn't doing that on the camera before. Wonder what's up with that. Yeah, like I said, I believe that this was completely redone. I don't know what it's doing. Oh, we're going through the welcome process. There's something very charming about that. I'm sure the audio is going to get my video muted now. I will go ahead and I'll set this up. So, might as well. I thought I powered this on, though. I don't know, maybe I reinstalled the Mac OS on this one, too.
If you know how to use VoiceOver, press Command F5 now to turn it on and set up your Mac. If you would like to learn how to use VoiceOver to set up your Mac, press the Escape key.
How about to turn it off? I don't want that crap. Well, there might be something wrong with the airport card in this machine because it's not letting me connect to my network, and I know I'm putting in the right password. So, I don't know. We'll just say my computer does not connect to the internet then, I guess. Of course, it wants me to register, but we can bypass that with Command Q. This mouse will move. Skip. Okay, looks like this one misdetected my monitor as well. Probably because I'm using that DVI to VGA adapter. Let's see, spec-wise, yeah, this one's exactly the same. I'll have to run the updates, it's only running 10.6. We got 1 gig of memory. Should see what this has in it for a hard drive, but it's basically going to be exactly the same. Yeah, same optical drive. Well, it's a different hard drive. Slightly different anyway. This mouse is driving me nuts. Holy crap, that's a 500 gigabyte hard drive. Oh, well, that's upgraded. That's for sure. But, yeah, I think everything else is pretty much the same. So, don't really have much else to share with this. So there you go. There's your Mac Minis. Shuts down a lot faster.